It's been over half a decade since his first solo movie in the MCU, and after many, many production delays, including COVID shutdowns and reshoots and different directors, Scarlet Witch in the Multiverse of Madness has finally released in cinemas, and so it is time to talk about it. Here we go. Okay, so before I start the actual review, I just want to say, as always, that this is a spoiler review. So if you haven't seen the movie and do care about spoilers, then do yourself a favor and go and watch the movie and come back to this video. Or if you have seen it or just don't care about spoilers, then continue watching. So let's just get on with this review, starting off with the first section in this video, which is the good stuff, the things that I loved about this movie. Here we go. Okay, so the first thing in this section, the thing that I love the most about this movie, which is by far my biggest standout, is none other than the Scarlet Witch herself. Not Wanda Maximoff, the Scarlet Witch. In this movie, she was incredibly powerful, badass, threatening, and menacing. Every time she came on screen, I had this massive grin on my face, but I was also very, very terrified of her because she was so powerful, and her true power and threat is shown throughout the entire film. Some particular moments that stand out for me with Scarlet Witch in this movie was when she says, this is me being reasonable, even when she's like attacking Cumberbatch, or even when, she sent these monsters in to kill Chavez. That was her being reasonable. That wasn't even her full potential unlocked, which I was shocked to hear the first time I watched it. Or when she says to Doctor Strange in the garden, it won't be Wanda that comes, it'll be the Scarlet Witch. Or when she first dreamwalks into 838, Wanda's body, and we get that awesome fourth wall break. Just so many cool moments with her in this movie. I could just rewatch all of her scenes just non-stop for days on end. She's just incredibly beautiful. Elizabeth Olsen carried this movie by far. She deserves, I don't know if she deserves an Oscar, but she definitely deserves a lot of praise for her performance in this movie. She's just incredible. I love this character so much. Check out my WandaVision review up there for more detail as to why I love this character so much. But yeah, I just love her. But probably the best scene, if I had to choose, was when she first attacks Cumberbatch, and we see, the cloud coming over Cumberbatch because they, it's a fortress, and then all of a sudden we just see them all looking up, which is like a massive army for one person, but that's how threatening and powerful she is. And then we just see all of a sudden the red light come through it, and I just got chills in that moment, absolute chills. Everybody was terrified of her throughout the entire film, and she was always very strategic and found ways to overcome any difficulty, whether it be through power or through her mind, like for example when she gets into the sorcerer's mind in order for them to break down the shield and therefore allow her to come into Cumberbatch, or when she's trapped in the mirror dimension and she tries to use her power but then that doesn't work, but then she realizes maybe I can use the reflections. All these awesome moments which just show how cool she is. And obviously the scene we absolutely have to talk about is when she kills the Illuminati, and the absolute brutality and carelessness she shows when she just kills these people without remorse. And then she says to Reed Richards, do your children still have a mother? Good, because then there'll be someone to care for her. Oh my god, I was like, that bitch, like, damn, okay. Or when they say that Black Bolt could kill Wanda with just one word out of his mouth, and then she goes, what mouth? And then they show, he doesn't have a mouth anymore and he self-implodes. Oh my god, that scene was so cool. That whole fight, amazing. And Elizabeth Olsen recently said in an interview that this wasn't even Wanda, Wanda's full potential, because it wasn't her original body. It was a variant. It wasn't the Scarlet Witch's body. And I'm like, if this is her not at her full potential, then what's the true Scarlet Witch? Hopefully we do see the true Scarlet Witch unlocked in the future, because holy shit, she was incredible in this movie. And as I said earlier regarding the cloud, the way that they depicted Scarlet Witch as a threat throughout the movie was awesome. For example, the color red, we know that symbolizes evil, but the way that they show the red light rather than having to show Scarlet Witch herself was really cool and creative. For example, as I said before with Cumberbatch, we see the red light, but also like when Professor X enters Earth 38 Wanda's mind, and we see it's all white, and then all of a sudden we just see a red cloud, and you don't even need to see Scarlet Witch. You're like, oh shit, she's here. Like, run for your life, Professor X. Like, that scene was incredible. And it was a really creative decision by Raimi to represent, how powerful she actually is and how threatening she is. This is truly the Scarlet Witch movie, which is why I said Scarlet Witch in the Multiverse of Madness in the introduction, because her scenes just stand out from everybody else. However, at the same time, in title, it's actually Doctor Strange. And at times, while he does have some development, which I'll talk about soon, she kind of does overshadow Doctor Strange, which I talked about in my Batman review, which you can check it up here. You know, in that video I said that I don't like how the Dark Knight trilogy, you know, in those movies, the villain kind of overshadowed Batman, and that kind of happens in this movie too. But at the same time, Wanda is just so good in this movie that I'm willing to overlook the fact that she's the villain and not the main character, because she's just incredible. And I really like the way they defeated her, you know, obviously because she's so powerful, and Doctor Strange knew that he was no threat to her. Like, Wanda could have just killed him with one snap of her finger, to be honest. So obviously she knew that, and America Chavez probably knew that. The only way that they could have defeated her is by her defeating herself. You know, she goes into the alternate reality, and then her entire motivation for getting her children back is destroyed because she thought that they would love and never know about, you know, what she had to do to see her children. And then she sees her children are terrified of her, and she's like, this isn't the person that I want to be. And so this internal self-conflict which results in her demise, which I loved, and it was an incredibly smart way to defeat her. And that scene where the two Wandas were together was incredibly emotional, even if I couldn't really figure out what the other Wanda was saying. But apparently she says no, that they would be loved, which is good to know now. Anyways, oh, and also in that scene where she says stop it, and how that was all improv apparently, according to Elizabeth Olsen. Wow. Although there was no real fight with Doctor Strange versus Wanda, minus like a few seconds towards the start of the movie and a little bit towards the end. Although, as I said, it made sense because he knew that they couldn't defeat her, so he just ran from it. However, I will say that the way in which they addressed WandaVision wasn't that good. Not necessarily in terms of the continuity. I think it makes sense continuity-wise, which I'll explain in a bit. But the way that they kind of just let her off the hook from her actions. She does reference in the garden, obviously, I made mistakes and people were hurt. But then he says, oh, you know, you made it right in the end. It's fine. Like, they kind of just forget about that for the rest of the movie. Whereas this movie, I'm not saying that her actions are justified, but we know it's not the real Wanda. It's Scarlet Witch being corrupted by the Darkhold. But in WandaVision, it was Wanda. Yes, but she couldn't control it. She just, you know, when she got cried, she just expanded the hex and stuff. Look, she at first didn't know what she was doing, but she continued to do it. And she says in this movie, even though it's technically not our Wanda, but she says in this movie, I had to lie at a vision. And so that is our Wanda that they kind of left off the hook, which is a minor complaint, but like, I just want to say that. Anyways, and they say it again at the end of this movie, she made the right decision in the end by killing herself or whatever. Although, how did the Darkhold get destroyed in other universes? Unless this temple thing was the only Darkhold temple out of the entire multiverse. But then what are the odds? Anyways. Now I will address some criticisms regarding Wanda in this movie. A lot of people have been saying that it didn't really make sense because at the end of WandaVision, she kind of just came to terms with the fact that she lost her children and her husband. I mean, I guess you could argue that, but from my point of view, I feel like WandaVision was her coming to terms with losing her husband, Vision, or her boyfriend or whatever. But in this movie, you know, it was coming to terms with losing her children. And that's how I perceive it, at least. Because you do see, like, the WandaVision finale, you do still see when she's tucking them in and stuff, and she has to say goodbye to them, you do still see that she's very emotional, kind of just doesn't really want to let go. And as Elizabeth Olsen has been saying in interviews and stuff, the grief of losing your children, I mean, I can't talk, I don't have children, obviously, but she says that the grief of losing a child is like greater than any other grief out there. And even when you see in the post-credit scene in WandaVision, she's still looking because the Darkhold is teasing her and the Darkhold's corrupting her. So I completely understand the motivation in this movie, and I feel like it makes sense, and it was a logical step to take her character. But I do see other perspectives too. Although, like, why didn't she just make new kids in this universe? No, I'm kidding. I know. Moving on from Scarlet Witch, because I spent already like 10 minutes discussing her, but I could go on for days about her. Anyways, I really loved Sam Raimi's distinct directive style in this movie, and certain shots, like, you know, when the zombie spirit things come down, and it's like a good drone shot, which is similar to the Crisis on Infinite Earths drone shot, but anyways, and the color grading and the visuals was awesome, and some really interesting choices that I really liked, which just shows Sam Raimi's expertise in this genre. And like, for example, the monologue with Mordo, I saw this tweet, which I couldn't agree more, and it's like, it's just a random exposition scene, and Sam Raimi does something really special with how it's edited, you know, paralleling Wanda and stuff, and the music choices in that scene too. All these choices, he is the GOAT. I love you, Sam Raimi. The first fight where Strange leaves the wedding to fight Gargantos just screams Raimi, and I got instant Spider-Man vibes from that, you know, jumping just to defeat the villain throughout New York City. And not to mention the many horror elements in this movie. Like the jump scares, such as, the one where Wanda breaks through the tunnel and they were running from her, and there's a long, zoom in on the door, and then she just, comes through. I mean, even though I rewatched it last night, like I've seen the movie twice, and I knew that was coming, but yet I still got scared. Although, why do they just keep running? They just stood there waiting for Wanda. Like, run! You can go get the Book of Ashanti and then be done, and just end the whole movie right now, but I know. They wanted to have that jump scare, which is cool. Anyways, other examples of jump scares includes, like, when Wanda attacks Professor X, when she's coming out of the reflections, and then it, scares America Chavez and stuff. All these awesome jump scares. I mean, a lot of people were saying this is the scariest MCU movie yet, and they really emphasized the horror. I mean, it definitely was pretty scary by Marvel standards, but I still feel like it could have pushed the boundaries even more. There were less jump scares than I was expecting, but it was cool when we did get the jump scares. And plus, there were also some very gruesome scenes at times, like when, when Gargantos's eyes get stabbed by the pole, and then it rips out, and we see like the bloody, that was, ugh. And another thing is that throughout this movie, you constantly feel the high stakes and the threat at large, and very rarely was I disengaged because there was always a lot going on, although it did feel longer than 2 hours, both watches, to be honest, which a lot of people were saying, they could have gone longer. I'm pretty sure it had the right, well, in my opinion at least, it had the right runtime. It was incredibly action-packed, and the movie really slowed down. The pacing was great throughout the entire movie, especially the first 20 minutes that the critics watched. It picks up straight away, and you're instantly engaged. And the fights are awesome too, throughout the entire movie, and the action, and the way that they use sorcery and show how resourceful these sorcerers are was so cool. Obviously, the one that comes to mind the most was the music note fight, which was so cool, just seeing how they could, like, come up with different spells and stuff on the spot. It was, more of an intelligence test rather than a test of who's stronger. And this fight particularly showed the incredible creative decisions Raimi made, and like my jaw dropped when, our version of The Strange saw, I can't remember what instrument it was, and then we just see one single music note flying through the sky, and that is enough to set him off. That was a cool scene. I really loved that scene. I also really loved the third act in this movie, and in my opinion, it was incredible. And it really takes off once our version of Strange, Dream, walks into Defender Strange's corpse, as a tongue twister, which was a genius way to bring him into that universe that I didn't see coming, when he says, who said he had to be living? Which actually Michael Waldron, the writer of the movie, said that was like the hardest thing about the movie was how do we get our Strange into the final fight, which was a very smart way, and he finally stuck the landing with that. That being said, I feel like the souls of the damned really kind of just came out of nowhere and shifted focus from the main villain in the third act, which was Wanda. They didn't really need to be there, in my opinion, but the fight scene was really cool, and the way he used those zombies was awesome, especially with how it was directed, and it wasn't really that big of a problem to take away from the third act. And Zombie Strange looked so cool and was really terrifying too at the same time. Obviously, this movie is titled Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness, and so you'd expect that it does explore the multiverse, which it does. It does explore the multiverse and the endless possibilities. I love the scene where they're flying through the sky. We see like paintball versions of America Chavez and Strange, and we see like Mario versions. I don't even know what that was. Like all these different versions, which was really cool. However, it is only scratching the surface of the multiverse. I mean, I wasn't expecting many cameos. I mean, maybe like Superior Iron Man, even though that was never promised, but like some cameos I was expecting, but I wasn't really expecting like something like this, like something with like every version from X-Men, from Fantastic Four, none of that sort of stuff. So I didn't build myself up with expectations I knew the movie probably wouldn't meet. I was just ready to go in and enjoy the movie for what it was. So I'm not disappointed by the cameos, even though it is called the Multiverse of Madness. This is only one of the first of many movies dealing with the multiverse, and there is still a lot more to explore going forward, while still showing the audience what the multiverse concept is capable of without fully exploring it. As I was saying earlier, while Michael Waldron, the writer of this movie, and also wrote the Loki show, which you can check out my review for up there, while he does say that, they try to put Strange's story first before everything, this isn't necessarily the case. However, I will say that Strange does get some great development throughout the movie and learns to be more selfless through, the other variants, which I really found cool, and showing that he can learn to be really compassionate while still having the same personality and sort of like arrogant quips that, Doctor Strange does. That's just who he is as a character. He learns to open up and to express his feelings like with the other version of Christine. Instead of being selfish and being like the other strangers, assuming that he has to go about that alone and everything without the help of others, he learns that he needs to not be afraid to open up, and therefore proves himself to be the better Strange because, he isn't as arrogant and independent, completely dismissing everybody else around him. Like, for example, he proves himself to be better than Defender Strange because he finds another way to defeat Wanda without having to take America's powers, because he realizes in his dream that that's the wrong thing to do. He literally betrayed his friend. And also, like, whereas 838 Strange used the Darkhold to defeat Thanos without consolidating the rest of the Illuminati, Strange only does it to save America, not for himself. Although that is one thing, why was Strange, like, perfectly okay with just killing America Chavez? Like, that's kind of hypocritical, and how are they any better than Wanda if they were fighting her for this very reason? Like, although I will say that I disagree with Wanda that dreamwalking into the corpse wasn't really hypocritical, as he was already dead, and that Strange probably would have done whatever was necessary to defeat the villain anyway. So, anyways, the Wong thing was actually quite hypocritical. And speaking of Wong, he is just such a cool character. I love him so much. And the banter that he has with Strange throughout the movie was great, regarding the Sorcerer Supreme and stuff. And I really loved seeing him step into this mantle and seeing everybody respect him. And he has to deal with the responsibilities of being Sorcerer Supreme. Although there were certain things that I didn't like with what they did with his character. Like, as I said before, the hypocrisy of his character. And also, the way that they just threw him off a cliff for half the movie and then just kind of forgot about him. Or when America and Strange, went to the other universe, and then like, oh yeah, Wong's still alone with Wanda. And I'm like, oh, poor Wong. But anyways, other than that though, he's just a legend, and I love Wong. The Wong Cinematic Universe, Shang-Chi, Spider-Man, Doctor Strange, and the Multiverse of Madness, and all these other movies, Wong is taking over the Marvel Cinematic Universe. He is, and you cannot tell me otherwise. Anyways, and the final thing I have in this category is Danny Elfman's score. It was epic, and he, even like 20 years later since the first Spider-Man trilogy, he still got it. His collaboration with Sam Raimi is it's still perfect, and especially, as I said, noticed in that scene mentioned earlier on with the music notes, and the music in that scene was awesome. Plus, when they first reference Wanda and we hear the dun 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 dun, I love that moment. When I first watched it, I just got this instant grin on my face. I was like, yes, Wanda! And I've seen some people over like TikTok and Twitter and stuff, they were saying that they didn't like the ice cream song. I mean, I don't have a problem with it. It's just a cute little scene. Apparently it was actually like written by Michael Waldron and composed by Danny Elfman. Which, I mean, at the same time, it's not that good, but it's not really meant to be good in the plot because it's written by children. Anyways, just wanted to bring that up. So yeah, now let's move on to the second and final section in this video, which is the mixed stuff. Here we go. So this section is basically things that I didn't love nor hate. There's nothing in this movie I have a major problem with, hence why there isn't a bad stuff section. It's just things that I didn't like, but they didn't really ruin the movie for me, you know what I mean? So these are the things that are just like, meh, whatever. So the first thing in this section is Christine Palmer. I didn't really mind her in the first film, which I rewatched prior to this movie. It's still mid, by the way. I don't care what anyone says. I don't really like that movie. But anyways, and I certainly didn't really mind her in this one, but there wasn't really anything too special with her character. As I said earlier, however, I really loved how her character helped Al Strange to develop and overcome his narcissism, but that's really as far as her character goes. And I did like the metaphor, the watch, and how Strange, kind of uses the watch and therefore kind of heals himself, even though, he declares he still loves her. But other than that, meh. She's fine. I don't really care. However, this one I actually kind of have a problem with, but it's not too big of a problem that ruins the character. It's just something I would really wish they did more with, which was America Chavez. I feel like she's only really a plot device and doesn't really get much development on her own in this movie, other than, she learns that she has to be more confident in her powers and has to embrace them. But other than that, there's nothing really interesting with the character. There's barely any focus on her backstory, and we learn very little about her. And, how she got her powers, for example. She just shows up with these powers. I don't think they ever explained it. If they did, please let me know. I would love to know how she got her powers. And not from the comics, from the movie. But I don't think they explained it. We obviously see the scene where, with her two mums, which is stupid that scene got the whole movie banned in Egypt and stuff, but whatever. So yeah, we see, the first time she uses her powers and she deals with the grief of, she kind of indirectly killed her parents. But that's pretty much as far as it goes. And also, she should really have no problems finding her parents now that, she found Strange that easily. Although I do love Xochitl Gomez. Hopefully that's how you pronounce her name. Apologies if I got it wrong. And I thought she was absolutely great in this role. I love her. She's so cute and adorable. Her TikToks is... Anyways. And she was honestly just there just to serve the plot. And the plot was rather simplistic. I know a lot of people had, significant problems with the writing. I personally don't. I disagree. I think it was pretty straightforward. Wanda needs these girls' powers. He needs to kill her to be with her children in another world. But, Strange won't let her. And that's the whole movie, basically. And they just get involved in multiverse shenanigans. I actually do wonder what the reshoots were for. Like, what was so significant that they had to, like, rewrite the whole movie? But anyways, I do hope that we do see a lot more of America Chavez going forward. And I assume we will, because the way they ended her character arc in this movie, you know, she's got a long way to go. She's still learning, but she has a lot of potential. And this is just a minor nitpick. The Book of Ashanti was kind of pointless. They used it as, like, the MacGuffin in the first, like, half of the movie. And then as soon as it gets destroyed, it's just like, oh, that was all kind of pointless. Anyways, I spent a while trying to find it, only for it to be destroyed, and it goes nowhere. Anyways, minor nitpick, as I said. Another character which was just meh in this movie was Mordo. I did like the hand-to-hand combat scene. I thought it was awesome, but he was kind of just there for 2 scenes and was just there. I also do wish that we got a follow-up scene from the post-credit scene in Doctor Strange. You know, when he says, no more sorcerers, who I can't remember who it was or whatever. They didn't follow up on that. I assume a big reason why we didn't follow up on that in this movie was because that was Scott Derrickson's idea for the second movie, and then when Sam Raimi took over, he kind of just got rid of that idea. Although there were some references to him turning on Strange and trying to kill him, or devoting his life to killing him. I don't know. I don't really remember that in the first movie, to be honest, so maybe they had it off-screen? Not sure. Anyways. I also thought that the post-credit scene was just kind of dumb. I mean, I know the references with Bruce Campbell, how he's in, like, every single one of Sam Raimi's movies, and I think it's a reference to the Evil Dead franchise or something. It's just, like, it's not that funny. I mean, I like the fourth wall break. It's over, but, like... Also, the amount of times I've had to see that stupid post-credit scene, because I work at the cinemas, and I have to, like, clean cinemas and stuff, and I have to wait for the post-credit scenes to be over and stuff before actually cleaning, and I've seen it so many times by now, and I'm so sick of it. Anyways... the mid-credit scene was okay, though, and I'm very curious to see, you know, Clea going forward. But, like, can't Strange just get a break? From one thing to another, oh my goodness, from Spider-Man to this movie, Wanda, from making an incursion and stuff. I'm like, just leave him alone! Oh my goodness, he deserves a break. Anyways, and the final thing in this section, I assume it's the thing most of you guys wanted my opinion on, and that is the Illuminati. I think the Illuminati in this movie was kind of just random and felt forced in for fan service. I mean, as cool as it was to see the fan casting of John Krasinski as Mr. Fantastic come to life, people were saying that he's miscast. I don't agree. I think he was really good in this movie. Mind you, I don't really know the character of Mr. Fantastic that well, so I can't really say whether he's the right person for this role, but anyways. Or, you know, as cool as it was to see Sir Patrick Stewart as Professor X or Captain Carter in live action, I still feel like they were just here just because. I mean, I am kind of willing to overlook this issue because these cameos were so cool, but my only question is just... why? And they're such random characters too. I know we were talking about the multiverse and stuff, and obviously the multiverse has a lot of endless possibilities, as they keep on saying, what if and stuff, which was mid. Anyways, and I know that I think these members were members of the Illuminati in the comics too, but that they're only really here just to demonstrate how strong / brutal Wanda is, and they really serve no other purposes than that. In my opinion, cameos are only well written if they have purpose, which is kind of ironic considering I liked Crisis on Infinite Earths and all the cameos there were just there for fan service. Like Ezra Miller's cameo, I love that cameo, it was awesome to see it. Doesn't really mean it had much significance in terms of the plot, but there is a difference between how cool a cameo is compared to how well written it is. And I feel like No Way Home struck that balance perfectly. I love seeing all the Spider-Men together. It was awesome. And they were actually well written too and served the plot. Although they weren't really cameos, were they? They were like kind of main characters for the second half of the movie. Anyways, another minor complaint I have in this scene was how stupid that Captain Carter kind of lasted the longest other than Captain Marvel. I found it hilarious when she says, I can do this all day. And then she just cut in half like 5 minutes later. Not even, like, it was literally like 20 seconds later. And as I said before, the way that Wanda killed these people and turned Mr. Fantastic into spaghetti and snapped Professor X's mind and made Black Bolt self-implode, all that stuff was awesome and incredibly gruesome and badass. But they probably could have been alive if they weren't so naive and actually just listened to our version of Strange rather than basing their opinion on Strange based off their version of Strange. But anyways, I could go on. I have a lot to say about this movie. So yeah, that's everything for this section and that's everything for this review. So let's just get on with my overall conclusion for the review. Here we go. In conclusion, I absolutely loved this movie. Obviously, as I've said many times, the main standout for this movie was the Scarlet Witch, who was incredibly badass, threatening, and just overall insane to watch, with a massive grin on my face, but also being terrified of her throughout the entire movie. I really do hope we see Scarlet Witch in more movies going forward. I think they can't just kill her off and that's it. A lot of people were saying, like, I already can't kill the Scarlet Witch. Like, surely they should bring her back and we'll see her full potential. And I can't. This is not the last time we're seeing Scarlet Witch. Oh, that's another thing. Why wasn't Vision in this movie? You know, they set up WandaVision, you know, to be White Vision and stuff, and then he just wasn't in this movie. Anyways, Sam Raimi brings his distinct directing style into the MCU, making a variety of interesting creative decisions that I really enjoyed. He also injects elements of horror into the movie, with several jump scares and very gruesome moments at times, or at least gruesome for the MCU. The movie dabbles into the multiverse in interesting ways. However, I do feel this concept can still be developed even further in future projects. Strange also undergoes a journey of self-discovery throughout the entire film and learns to open up and stuff, even if it does still feel more like a Scarlet Witch movie than a Doctor Strange one. Although there were like a lot of repetitive themes and motives throughout the entire movie, like, "Are you happy, Strange?" And then when he says that back to Wong later on in the movie and they embrace, that scene is so good. Or when they say, "You're always the one holding the knife," like, it's always you in control of everything, and you don't let anyone else get involved. It always has to be you. And, you know, all these themes that they, you know, talk about throughout the entire movie, I really loved. However, that being said, I do have some criticisms with this movie. For example, as cool as it was seeing the Illuminati, they did kind of just feel shoehorned in for fan service. And America Chavez in particular was a character I was really looking forward to seeing, and they kind of didn't really develop her that much. And she was really only there to serve the plot. Although these are minor problems because I really did like what we were given anyways. And that doesn't mean I didn't really enjoy the movie. Even after I rewatched it last night, I loved it just as much, if not more, because I was able to take everything in and just really see just how good this movie is, in my opinion. I love it. I don't care what anyone says, this movie is great, in my opinion. Even if it's not perfect. I know it's not perfect, but it's still really good, in my opinion. And therefore, I would give this movie an 8 out of 5 out of 10, and I encourage you all to see it as soon as you can, especially if you're a big MCU fan. And with that comes the end of my review. Thank you all so much for watching this review. Hopefully I get this one up a lot faster than I did my Batman review. I am so sorry, it took me like a month to edit that, if not more. No, it was like 2 months, I'm pretty sure. Anyways, so yeah, thank you so much for watching. Please be sure to like, subscribe, and turn on the post notifications so you guys know when I next upload a video. Join my Discord server, follow me on Twitter, all my socials and stuff are linked in the description. And yeah, that's about it. Thank you guys so much for watching this video, and I will see you guys next time. My name is Jordan, and I am out. Bye!